Hello everyone, this is Jeff with the Green Review. Let's talk about Kokedama. Koke is the Japanese word for moss, and dama is possibly the translation for ball, or it could be tama. Maybe it means marble. Even though there may be something lost in translation, Kokedama is now the Japanese word meaning moss ball. In Japan, it's been a popular garden style similar to bonsai, and it's becoming more popular in the rest of the world. The original style of Japanese moss ball uses heavy clay soil that will retain its shape on its own. Moss is then wrapped around the mud ball where it grows naturally. It does not need to be tied together to hold it. So small, slow-growing plants like ferns can be added to make the moss ball into a flower pot. It's a very simple planting method for small plants. You're simply replacing a standard plastic or clay pot with a wrapping of moss. If the plant would be grown in loose potting soil, you make the ball out of the soil and wrap it in moss. It will probably need to be tied to retain the shape. If the plant would be planted into an orchid mix, such as that used for phalaenopsis orchids or other epiphytes, you can use that, but again, you'll probably have to tie it in place. The moss ball can be admired in a tray, like these, or by hanging, like the rest of these. Many plants that would grow in hanging baskets can be used in Kokedama. Epiphytic plants, like many orchids, tillandsias, bromeliads, and other vines can be used in hanging Kokedama. The moss used as the pot can be alive or dead. Moss comes in many forms, but the type known as sheet moss is what is used. There are many species of moss that grow in sheets. If you have some in your landscape, you can dig them up. But do not dig up moss in a forest preserve or locations that you do not have permission. You can buy sheet moss at mossacres.com or mossmaninc.com. It might be called sheet moss, feather moss, or shag moss. You can also use long strand sphagnum moss, which takes a little more time to wrap around the ball due to the many smaller pieces. If you're using a mud ball, the first step is to get the soil wet enough that it will hold together and shape it into a ball. Second, make a hole in the ball or break the ball in half and insert the plant roots. Reshape the soil to hold the plant in place. Third, wrap the ball in moss and use string or fish line to hold it in place. Fourth, if the ball is going to be hung, you can stick a wire through the ball and bend a hook in it so it'll hold it. If you're using string, tie the string to the wrapping strings and adjust them until the plant hangs upright. Tie the hanger strings high up on the ball and not in the middle so the ball doesn't just tip over with the weight of the plant. Although you can hang the plant so the plant hangs to the side or straight down and the ball doesn't have to be perfectly round. The potting soil and orchid mix soil don't hold their shape for the ball on their own. They need to be held in place by the moss and string. They may benefit from using cheesecloth or other loose porous fabric to wrap the soil to hold it in place, because the moss isn't always a big solid sheet. It has smaller pieces together, and so it doesn't hold very well without that extra fabric holding it all in place. If you're using live moss and you want to keep it alive, you'll need to plant a shade-loving plant, since the moss will need to remain in the shade. If you're using a dead moss or sphagnum moss, you can grow a sun-loving plant. You'll need to be more careful with the water, as the Kokedama ball will dry out quickly in the sun and wind. You can tell when the Kokedama needs watering, as it will become light when it's dry and the color of the moss will change. The live moss will lose its bright green color, and the sphagnum moss will turn a much lighter brown than the wet sphagnum moss. You can use peat moss and sphagnum moss or water-retaining crystals in the soil to help retain moisture, since the moss ball planter will dry out faster than a plant in a plastic pot due to the soil being completely exposed to the air. The balls can be misted daily, but even then they may need to be dipped in water for a few minutes each day, or possibly a week, depending on how strong the soil is at holding water in the ball. Kokedama balls make great planters. They can be hung from chandeliers or from curtain rods. They can be placed in windowsills or on planters. They really are a fun project. So the next time you're out in your yard and you see some moss growing under the shade of a tree, think to yourself, hey, I can use that as a planter around some of my plants, and it's a very simple project. It doesn't take very long, just a couple hours, and you can make a new display for your house and your landscape. I found a problem with using the jute type of string for the hangers and for wrapping the balls, that it rots too quickly. So the clear plastic fish line kind of material is better. It lasts longer and doesn't rot. So I think this might be the better solution. The jute twine looks nice when you first put it on, but in the long run it's probably better to use the plastic fish line. I also found that using an iron material for the metal hangers, and also rusted, it's all rusty on the outside, but it works on the inside of the ball. It rots away, or rusts away rather, and then it breaks, and so the plant falls to the ground. So I found that aluminum and copper wires are a little better, and so they are prettier and they last longer. So if you can find copper or aluminum, that's better than the iron ones that rust. A good clay works really well for making moss balls because it holds together, but sometimes the soil is just too organic. It's a lot of black topsoil kind of material, and so it doesn't stick together very well. But I found that using the roots of the plants that I'm digging up, sometimes these fine thin roots will work really well. By plastering this together with the mud, I can make a really solid ball that holds together really well. So if you have a black soil, you might use, if you don't have roots, you might be able to use some of the jute twine or other string material inside of the black ball, and that will hold it together better to make the moss ball. I find that when I first make a moss ball that's going to stay as a moss ball, that string helps to hold it together. And I also found that if it's just sitting on a saucer a lot, that the moss on the bottom will die, and so you have to rotate it around a lot, and sometimes I forget. And so I also found that if I take the little tables that you find in the pizza box for delivery, that I put this into the mud and work the roots and everything around there, so it's a really solid ball that I can use these legs sticking out through the moss at the bottom of the ball, and then it'll sit on the tray or the saucer, whatever it's on, and it works really well to keep the bottom from dying out. I can still move it around and rotate it so it gets sunlight, but when I want to display them, then I can put that on the bottom. Thank you for watching all the way to the end of this Kokedama ball video. I release a new gardening video every Friday at noon. The videos fit into the playlists that follow the chapters of the Green Review Gardening book, and the link for that book information is going to appear right here. Every Friday in February 2023, the videos will be about taking care of different houseplants. So don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss a single new video. If you really like plants, check out the playlist to learn a lot more about plants. And thanks for watching.